The Bengals used the fifth overall pick in drafting wide receiver JaMarr Chase, but how high should you draft him for your fantasy football leagues? Let's break it down with SI senior fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano. And Fabs, Chase didn't play in 2020. He sat out the season because of COVID-19. But from what we saw in 2019, he really, really balled out.
He was awesome. 84 catches, 20 touchdowns. He ranked seventh among wide receivers in yards after the catch. Broke more tackles than any wide receiver in the nation. And who was his starting quarterback? That's right. It was Joe Burrow, who is now the starting quarterback of his new team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Also, a crazy stat here. Chase was so good in 2019 that he actually still led the nation's wide receivers in terms of the most 20-plus yard touchdown catches over the last 2 years, and he didn't play in 2020. He is an absolute star in the making.
From a historical standpoint, this is why I love working with you because you do so much research into data and historical trends. Break it down for us for fantasy football performance for wide receivers in their first year that were drafted in the first round.
If you're a football fan, you know that the first round has not been all that kind as it pertains to wide receivers. So since 2010, a total of 36 first round wide receivers have scored at least 2.5 fantasy points. And I did that because I want to get everybody possible involved in this research. So among those 36 players, only Justin Jefferson last year and Odell Beckham Jr. in 2014 finished in the top 10 among wide receivers. So that's not very many. Three others, including A.J. Green, Kelvin Benjamin, and Amari Cooper, were in the top 20. So, Bill, 14% of first-round wide receivers have put up a top 20 fantasy season in the last 11 years. That's not really good. Now, if we include wide receivers who were drafted in the first 3 rounds, and that's 134 players who scored at least 2.5 fantasy points as a rookie, Michael Thomas was a top 10 finisher in 2016. That's it. Keenan Allen was the wide receiver 19 in his rookie year. Juju Smith-Schuster was the wide receiver 20. So, once again, 6% of rookie wide receivers selected in the first 3 rounds have finished in the top 20 since 2010. That's not good.
No, that is an alarming stat if you do plan on drafting a rookie first round or a wide receiver that was drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. Let's talk about the coaching staff here. Listen, we know Chase and Joe Burrow have a connection because of their days at LSU, but Brian Callahan's offense in Cincinnati, Zach Taylor, what do they kind of preach in terms of what they expect their wide receivers to do?
Well, first off, they're going to throw the football a lot. And this is a great situation for JaMarr Chase. And don't get me wrong, folks, I love the talent. Absolutely love the talent. Look at the team he's going to. Number one, built-in rapport with the quarterback, okay? And in the 10 games that Burrow played last year, the Bengals were third in average plays per game and pass percentage. What does that mean? They play fast and they throw the ball a lot. The offense was also second in pass attempts per game. So the Bengals are going to throw it a ton. I mean, I could see Burrow throwing it 650 times in 2021. That's great news for Chase, for T. Higgins, and for Tyler Boyd. But in that, there's a lot of mouths to feed, and we're going to discuss that.
So in terms of mouths to feed, I'm looking at some ADP data right now. Chase is the first Bengals wide receiver coming off the board, 25th overall wide receiver. T. Higgins, his teammate, second-year playmaker for Cincinnati, 27th overall. And then Tyler Boyd, the veteran of this group, he's 33rd overall wide receiver.
And so Boyd might be the best value, right? Because he led the team in targets last year. He's been very good as the only top 20 wide receiver based on fantasy points under the Taylor and Callahan regime. And I feel like this is where even I need to temper my expectations for JaMarr Chase. Why? They've got 2 really good receivers alongside him, and T. Higgins was playing at a very high level in the second half, and part of that was without Joe Burrow, right? So when you look at the numbers, if they throw it 650 times, all 3 of these guys have an opportunity to have 100-plus targets. But will JaMarr Chase have 130 or 140, and the other guys will be in the lower 100s? I don't know about that, right? This is a guy who's going to give you a lot of yards after the catch. That's good. So maybe he doesn't need a lot of those targets to make plays and be prominent from a fantasy perspective. But I do feel like we do have to temper expectations somewhat. Fantasy managers are all excited about the rookie wide receivers after what we saw from Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk last year and Chase Claypool. And oh, by the way, none of those guys outside of Jefferson was in the top 20 among wide receivers. They just showed some real flashes of potential. And I love CeeDee Lamb. But JaMarr is a guy that, while I have him ranked as a low wide receiver 2, I'd rather have him as a high wide receiver 3. I like the upside. I love the built-in rapport with Burrow. But there are some other really good options in that pass attack. And I didn't even mention a guy like Joe Mixon, who was on pace for a career high in catches before he went down last season. CJ Uzama's in the mix as well. Drew Sample's in the mix as well. So once again, the Bengals, a lot of mouths to feed. JaMarr's the best and most talented guy out of the group, but I don't think he's going to end up having a Justin Jefferson type season.
All right, so that is the breakdown of JaMarr Chase, rookie wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. We have plenty more rookie fantasy football analysis, including Atlanta Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts. That's all up on Sports Illustrated. Go check it out, si.com/fantasy.